All right, ladies, welcome to this episode of the Joyful Scaling Podcast. I'm here with Stephanie Brinkley. She's the founder of Brinkley Law Firm here in Charleston. And I love her focus, keeping families first. But interestingly, her expertise goes well beyond conventional family law. She is an expert in the area of fertility law, and she remains on the cutting edge of this emerging area. She's a frequent guest speaker on the complexities of third-party reproduction, having lectured at law schools as well as local and state bar associations. She's been featured on television news programs, and she's the co-author of a book called Developing a Successful Assisted Reproduction Technology Law Practice. And I'm so excited to have her here. And it's a little bit different than what I usually have on the podcast, but she's a lover of the Lord Jesus and her expertise is so intriguing. I had to feature her. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Judy. It's an honor to do this with you. I'm excited to be your guest and to speak to your audience and just share a little bit about my background and what I'm doing now and how I'm trying to use my powers for good.
Yes. And, ladies, as you're building your businesses, as I always say, there is nothing better to do that than to connect. And it's not always just connecting with prospective clients. It is also connecting with, local and regional business owners, as Stephanie is. So when we chatted, I was like, I'm falling in love with you. I need to have you on. So why don't you tell our listeners, how did you get involved in this area, this fertility law area of the family law arena?
Well, honestly, it was purely by accident. I look back now, at the time I thought it was kind of random, but I can see now, 10, 12 years later that there was definitely a bit of divine intervention going on there. Before I went to law school, I was a paralegal for a big mass tort litigation firm. And I just got to the point, I was ready for the next step. So I told my husband that I wanted to go to law school. And I thought for sure that after law school that I would continue to do mass tort or personal injury of some kind. But in the middle of school, I read an article about snowflake babies. And the focus of the article was about the growing number of unused embryos in storage and what people are doing with them, what kind of decisions they're making, donating to other couples that are struggling, et cetera. But a portion of that article focused on the lack of clear legal framework across the country when it comes to third-party reproduction. It's all over the map, literally, and how a family law and adoption attorneys are just kind of cobbling together agreements and trying to help create a blueprint for success with their state legislatures and whatnot. And I didn't even know this was an area of law. And I thought, that's fascinating. And how exciting to be on the cutting edge of something that's building and developing. And, I love learning about the law and I love my family. And I would love to help other people have that experience. I understand what it's like to struggle. I have a lot of clients that have struggled, way more than I ever have. But I did have 2 ectopic pregnancies before each of my children. It was horrific. And so I don't take it for granted that I'm a parent. And so when my clients come to me, I'm the last person they want to see when it comes to, fertility law and they're building their family. But that's why I have to be their biggest cheerleader, because I'm going to get them to the finish line. I know the desire on their heart is strong to be a parent. And if that desire is strong, we will make it happen. They feel that way for a reason. It's part of their purpose.
Right. And I love that. And I can hear your passion for your work. I worked for several large firms, both in the corporate and more than the corporate, the trial side. Mm-hmm. And the passion was a lot of times to win, but not necessarily to really care about the client. Right. And so I just feel that for you. So as a lawyer, I especially appreciate that.
I love it. My practice is 10 years old, 10 and a half. And I am just as excited to come to work every day now as when I started the practice. Every case is different. My clients are wonderful. They're in South Carolina. They're in other states. They're coming to me from other countries even. I have clients from Asia and Europe. And the common denominator is that they're using a surrogate in South Carolina, but they're coming to me because they need my help with the legal work. So I get to meet people from all different cultures and backgrounds, and it's really wonderful and fulfilling.
Wow, it sounds it. So what drives your motivation? Like, you mentioned in the notes about God, your God influence, and how that's impacted your work, and I can see it. But I'd love you to talk more about that.
No, sure. It's pretty funny because I told you I read that article about the snowflake babies, and so kind of like literally the seed was planted in my brain. I want to do that, but it was intimidating, the idea of graduating from law school and opening my own practice, because that's the only way it was going to happen. At that time, there was only one other attorney in South Carolina that practiced fertility law. And so it's not like I could join a firm and be assigned a mentor and learn. Everything I know about fertility law is self-taught.
Wow.
Okay. So that kind of discouraged me, but I continued to pray about it. I said, you know what, God, I am a creature of comfort, and I will stay mildly uncomfortable for a paycheck every 2 weeks. But if this is not the path you want for me to stay in this practice and to do personal injury, you will have to make it abundantly clear, because I am stubborn, and you know that you made me this way. So I was just kind of like, give me a sign. And so after I passed the bar, the hiring manager, I went to meet with him at the personal injury firm, and he said, Stephanie, we're so proud of you. We never worried about you passing the bar. You're such a hard worker, and we admire your dedication. And we, at the time, this is 2010. So they said, we're in a hiring freeze, but we will lift that in the spring, and we're going to move you to the securities fraud division. Oh my gosh, there is nothing worse for me. Securities fraud. And you know what, though? I just had this big smile on my face, and I said, thank you, sir. That sounds amazing. Thank you. I'm honored that you considered me for that position. And I walked out with a big smile on my face, because I said to myself, all right, God, I got it. I got it loud and clear. That's my sign. And I was at peace with it. So I went home and told my husband about it. And he was like, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm out of there. I was looking for a sign, and I got it. And I didn't leave right away. I was very methodical about it and very considerate of my employer at the time. They were very good to me. They allowed me to stay there when I was in law school and everything. So I did it over time. I kind of phased out, if you will. Yeah. But that was my sign, and it was very clear.
See, you know why I'm laughing too? I'm smiling not only at what you just described, but in my first couple of years as a lawyer, when I worked down in Delaware, I worked with a guy, gosh, what was his name? Dan Franceschi or something like that. Anyway, I loved him, and he did securities law. Like, I love that kind of law. I love the mental gymnastics of that. And I remember some cases fondly with that. But anywho, so let's talk about that start of your law practice. What kind of planning? Take us back there when you're working in the PI firm, and now you're realizing I've got to get my own firm off the ground.
Mm-hmm. Well, thankfully, my years of experience as a paralegal really equipped me. A lot of my friends who were graduating at that time and did not have jobs lined up because, again, there was a recession, were very intimidated with the idea of opening up their own practice, because they did not understand the practical aspects of running a firm. They didn't even know how to, open a physical file and organize it or anything like that. I know the basics, right? And so I was not intimidated by that. At least I was armed with that practical skill set. It was really just about coming up with a plan for success for my business. My husband has an MBA from the Citadel, and he sat down with me and helped me write a business plan, which was a labor of love. I did not like it. It was not fun, but he bribed me with dinner and a movie, so we did it.
That's great. He's so supportive. I love it.
Yes. So I just kind of put the plan into action, but I will say the big stumbling block in the beginning was capital. Where am I going to get capital to start a practice? Mm-hmm. The SBA, they don't typically lend money to, budding young attorneys. They're kind of like, oh, you're a lawyer. Oh, you're going to be just fine. Figure it out. Yeah. So we did apply for some loans at banks, and maybe because it was the recession, it didn't matter what kind of collateral we offered up. They just were not lending. So I had to get real creative, and I had to kind of leverage against my retirement account a little bit in the beginning, but I paid it all back within a year. But I just had to get creative, because once I make a decision, I'm following through with it. The path may be difficult, It may be, bumpy. It may take time. That's okay. I can be patient, but I'm going to do it. So that's how I got it up and running.
I love that. And that statement is the success statement of every woman who's made it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once I make a decision, I'm following through with it. So ladies, if anyone's listening and you're struggling and you're like, wait a minute, I seem to be repeating year 1 in year 4, 5, 6, and you're not moving forward, or at least not as quickly as, you'd like to, maybe the issue is your own mind. I really firmly believe the older I get, mindset and determination and commitment,
Absolutely.
and really, to me, the foundation of faith. So because you're a woman of faith, I'd love to talk about how your faith has helped you in standing firm as you are building your law firm.
Well, funny you should say. So I was talking about starting the practice during the recession. So this is spring of 2011. And I went to church one Sunday and I ran into another member of the church who's also a lawyer in the community, longstanding. And he said, Stephanie, how's it going? Are you happy over there with your firm? Are you staying there? And I said, actually, I'm going to start my own practice. I'm opening up in about 30 days. And he said, why in the world would you do that? That is financial suicide. Do you not know that there's a recession? I said, I know there's a recession. And I figure that if I'm successful in a recession, I'm going to kill it when we come out of it. Okay.
Yep. See, that's a can-do attitude. I love it.
I know. I'm like, of all people, another attorney who's a member of the same church making that statement, I was kind of like, but you know what? That's the other thing. God knows that I love to prove people wrong. Yep. I can't stand to be told no. I can't stand for people to say you can't do it. I hate that word, cannot. I absolutely can, and I absolutely will. And so I have. And that person is a good friend, and he refers a lot of business to me. So it all worked out. But he really questioned my sanity when I started out.
Yeah. I could see that. Was he the owner of his own firm, or was he, a partner?
Yeah, well, it's a partnership. There's 3 partners to a firm, and he's involved in politics. So he's he comes from a pretty prominent family. And so, it's kind of like, why struggle if you don't have to, why struggle? You've got a nice cushy job with that big firm. Why don't you stay there? Well, I could stay there, but would I be happy? No, I wouldn't be happy. And in everything I do, I try to make sure I have no regret. Okay. I can make mistakes and learn from them, but I never want to look back and say, I should have, I could have, and I didn't. Because I'll kick myself for that. So I would rather try and fail, or just, try, maybe not fail, but, learn what does work well and what doesn't work well than to not try at all.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I love it. And, this conversation, it sounds basic, but I'm telling you, from talking and working with hundreds and hundreds of women through the years, these are basic, like gut, heart beliefs.
Absolutely.
You have to be in it to win it, so I know there are times with financial situations where some women that I've worked with in the past and that that I've seen come up into their business, that there are times when they had to stay at their corporate job, for example,
of course,
as they build their business, or maybe a side hustle or two. But it always kind of concerns me, because when we're spread too thin, plus we're moms and it's hard to keep it all together. But if God has told us our purpose, then here's the beautiful thing about being a Christian. This is why I say we should be the most joy-filled, peace-filled, most, profitable and impactful, because he promised to equip us. There's nothing to worry about. And I know I sometimes get in that worry mode, but I try to stop it, because that's the enemy's lie. And the truth is, God, I got this because God's got me. So that's just, I love everything you're saying here. Let's talk about the juggle as a mom, and as this sought after expert on this, I think feels to me anyway, like it's still kind of emerging. It's such a complex area of the law. How do you juggle it all?
I feel like I for a long period of time, I was just an autopilot, so backtrack to when I started law school, I stayed with the same firm. I was still working 30 hours a week, going to law school part-time. And when I started, my children were 2 and 5. And my husband was working and also going and getting his MBA at the Citadel. So for those first couple of years, we structured our classes so that, if I went to class Monday, Wednesday, he would go Tuesday, Thursday, so that our kids were still with us. Or, in the evenings, they might have been in daycare or whatever during the day, but at night they were always with one of us. And that we only had to do that crossover for about 2 years. And then he graduated and I was like, yay, now it's just me. But when I got my acceptance letter to the law school, I hesitated. And my mom said, why are you hesitating? And I said, because I didn't realize I would actually get accepted. I wanted it, don't get me wrong, but because I had a family that I could not uproot and move. I knew I was putting all my eggs in one basket. But again, if you're fulfilling God's purpose, it will happen. The door opened. So now it's like, ooh, what do I do? Do I actually go? And she said, you know what? You need to go while your children are young, because they won't remember this. I'm telling you, they will not remember it. If you wait, they're going to be teenagers and they need you around. And by the time they're graduating and going on to college, you're not going to be thinking about starting a new career, a second career. So do it now. And she said, if you go for a semester and it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out, but at least you tried, right? So going back to that, just try and don't have regret. Wow. So I've had a lot of help along the way. I won't deny that. I haven't had nannies or anything like that, but my husband's been very good about sharing responsibilities. When the children were in, grade school, I had some really good sitters. Often they were people from the church, teenagers from the church. I taught Sunday school to middle school girls for a couple of years. And someone said, why are you doing that? You could be in the adult class. And I'm like, well, I love the girls, number one. Number two, I want to learn what they're going through before my daughter's that age. Ooh, so that I can practice my poker face. Ooh, that was hard. And then also, I trust these girls and I trust them enough to take care of my kids. So my Sunday school girls were a great pool of babysitters wanting to make money. So, it's all coming back to that church family, and God providing, and giving me peace of mind to find people who could help me raise my kids. And now I have a daughter who's a junior at Anderson University in South Carolina, and my son is a senior in high school, considering his college options. And I think they're doing well. I asked them, I say, you remember the time when mom was in law school and you all were doing this or that? And they say, no, I don't remember.
Oh, so wow.
My mother was right. My mother was right.
Isn't it neat? Gosh, I don't know. My mom was always spot on too. They give this great advice, and my mom was a stay-at-home, and my dad was a factory worker. And even though I knew they were smart, there was a part of me that thought they weren't wise. And over the years, the older I got, the more I saw how wise they are. It's just amazing. So anywho, that's cool. And the fact that you asked for help, that tends to be, I find, an area that women tend to hesitate on. In your case, you couldn't take the kids with you to law school, so you had to find help. Right. But for anyone out there that is feeling like, ooh, I need help, but I don't know where to reach out to, I don't know who to reach out to, or I feel kind of funny doing that, do it, because nobody got to any level of success on their own. And that's why I have this podcast. That's why I have the Joyful Scaling Facebook group. That's why I'm all about community. It is so important. So do not do it alone. Let me ask you this. You have built a successful law practice. What advice do you have for women out there who, let's start with the law firm, anybody listening who has that, JD, and they're working for a firm, they're really not wild about it. What do they need to know?
So let's look at it from, hypothetical. So they took a job out of law school because the student loan debts were starting to roll in and you got to make your payments. And it's not their ideal area of law that they want to practice in, but it is a job and they have benefits and they're getting paid every 2 weeks. That's fine. You know what? Build your reputation within your firm as being a solid attorney, someone that can be relied on, who cares about their clients. Do your best. It may not be your passion, but do your best. But don't give up on your dream. I mean, you can earn the respect of the partners. And maybe if your area of law that you really want to practice will complement the existing areas of the practice, they might just give you the opportunity to bring that on board. Obviously, it has to be a moneymaker for them. We all know that. But they might allow you to branch out and bring that other practice area into the group. If not, that's okay. As a member of that firm, you have the opportunity to network with people in the community and across the state who are in the area of law that you want to practice in. So as you're building your reputation up within your own firm, and those partners are speaking well of you to other attorneys, your reputation will get out there. And when you approach someone who is practicing in the area that you want, they already know you're a solid attorney, okay, and that you do good work. And so they'll be more inclined to consider hiring you if you want to make a lateral move or something like that. Don't give up on your dream. Where there's a will, there's a way. When I first started my practice, so fertility law, I mean, it's hard to get into. I would, even now, I wish I did it 100%, but not fertility treatments are expensive. So it's not like everyone can do it. Okay. That's just a hard reality. So 60% of my practice is fertility law and family building. 40% is traditional family law. But when I started my practice, as I was building up that fertility law part of it, do you know what area of law I practiced in?
No, what?
Foreclosure defense.
Oh, wow.
Yes, foreclosure defense. I was still keeping families first. I was keeping them in their home. And that kind of fell in my lap because my last semester of law school, I interned with the Master of Equity here in Charleston. And I just I learned what the programs were that were out there to help people and how to buy them time and get them qualified for certain programs. I just kind of learned it through osmosis. So when I graduated and I started my practice, that judge put me in touch with someone who gave me a local nonprofit group that gave me contract work as a contract attorney to help homeowners. And, that was, keeping the lights on money for the first couple of years.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, see, that is the amazingness of God, that he, happened to put you in that place, right? So that, as the things would work out, that would be how you get that firm off the ground. Wow. I just love to hear about that. And the importance again of networking. That's something that, I don't know, it was hard for me to understand the importance of that. And now I see that networking, I'll be honest, I was in sales since out of college, some aspect of it before I went to law school. And, certainly as a trial lawyer, I'm selling my case all the time. But I used to think that networking was like a drudgery. Like I used to be the one to be the wallflower at these events. And I just didn't understand the import of just talking to people. There's no really agenda. So if anybody listening, has that mindset, understand it's a joy now to network. I just love talking with people. Do you have any comments on that, Stephanie?
Oh, I try to make networking fun. I agree. It can be boring. I had an associate one year, I had a female associate, and I said, we're going to do a fashion show. And she said, what? I said, it's a networking opportunity. She said, what are you talking about? I said, they're doing a fashion show at this private club downtown. And I think it was with Talbot's or something like that. And they asked for members of the club to volunteer to be models for the show. I said, it's a great opportunity because we're going to walk into a room with all these, disgruntled women who are thinking about divorce. And they're going to introduce us and who we are and what we do. And, we'll walk around the room, wear some nice clothes, and then we'll have a nice lunch afterwards. And she said, I think you're crazy. And I said, no, I'm serious. I mean, make it fun. It doesn't always have to be a boring bar conference with everybody standing around in suits, just have some fun with it. Even if you take the initiative to bring people together on your own. And I have done that before, just reaching out to a group of female attorneys or male attorneys or both that I find interesting. And that I want to get to know better and saying, hey, do you want to meet for happy hour here? And this sometimes smaller is better because you get that chance to really have a conversation with people and get to know them. Because when you're in a situation where you've got a room full of 50 to 100 people, it's like speed dating, and you just want to, okay, what do you do? How long have you been busy? Okay, how can I help you? Okay, boom, move on to the next person. And I like to get to know people. I do tell young attorneys, I'm like, never underestimate the power of a personal relationship. Okay. Emails are not sufficient. Letters, not so great either. If you are interested in, someone as a future employer or a referral source, get to know them, take them out for coffee. Even if you just stop by their office, make that personal connection. It's so important.
Absolutely. That is awesome advice. Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So this is the Joyful Scaling podcast. So I love to ask this question. What about your work brings you the most joy?
The baby pictures.
I know, who doesn't love babies?
When I'm having a hard day, with my family law cases, the divorces and the bickering and the fighting, and I'm just about to snap. And then I open the mail and there's a baby picture, and a thank you note. I mean, that just makes my day, because that's not unusual when you're doing family law, to get a thank you. But you don't often get a thank you in a divorce case. The thank you is paying the bill. So yeah, I love the baby pictures.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. It reminds me of, the baby doctors, the gynecologists. They have the baby pictures like up in their offices and things. That's so awesome. All right. Well, you are speaking coming up in December, and I don't know how many lawyers specifically will be listening, but this is such an honor. I'd love you to talk about that briefly.
Yes. So on December 3rd, I'll be speaking in Columbia, South Carolina, which before the AAML, which is the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. They are, it's a fellowship. They are the cream of the crop. They are the best at what they do. They handle high asset divorce cases, complex divorce cases. Maybe it's, international child kidnapping. I don't know. There's a very unique element to the divorces, and these individuals are the best at what they do. So they've asked me to come and speak to them, to the crowd, their South Carolina chapter, about the crossover between fertility law and family law. What do we do when there's a divorce and there's 10 embryos in storage? Who gets them? How do you think the court will decide that? That is an issue that's not been litigated in South Carolina yet, but it's getting there. I'm getting more and more calls from attorneys who are in mediation with their divorce clients, and they're fighting over the embryos and trying to decide how to resolve that issue. And if they don't, how will the court handle that? So I'm giving advice on that. But I'm excited, I'm one of many speakers that day, but that's my unique aspect that I'm bringing to the table, and I'll help educate them and hopefully garner some referrals out of that.
Yeah, no doubt. And what a beautiful opportunity for you. That's great. Congrats on that. All right. So last thing, how can our audience get in touch with you? What's the best place to find you?
So I have, you can go to the firm website, BrinkleyLawFirmLLC.com. My bio is there. I encourage anyone who's curious, may have a question for me, whether it's legal or just business, go ahead, check out my bio and learn a little more about me before you reach out if you'd like. I've got several blog articles that I've written that are on that website. They can also reach me by email, which is just sbrinkley@BrinkleyLawFirmLLC.com. We do have a Brinkley Law Firm Facebook page. That's more for fun. I love the funny divorce memes that we put up and baby pictures.
Yeah.
So my social media person, she has my same sense of humor, so she finds some really good ones. I mean, you got to laugh.
Yeah.
Divorce is not fun, so let's just have a good laugh here and there.
Yeah.
But yes, they can reach out through the website or to me directly, or even call the office at 843-277-9009.
Awesome. And I will make sure to have all of that inside the show notes. Stephanie, thank you so much. This has been such a great episode.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Ladies, as you're listening, if you have loved this episode, would you please take a moment and leave a rating and a review? That helps us to move up in the ranks so that more amazing women like you can find the show. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.